got no sway, man. I was trying to give the Wolves back a hug. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Well, let me get used to these lights. It's great to be back, man. Like I didn't know it was so rare for me to come back on stage, being reinvited back here to Awesomeness Fest. Because it's not often I get to be part of a tribe of sorts to talk about personal growth. I spend most of the year at conferences and in meetings with entrepreneurs. We're always talking about growing businesses. Whether it's talking about raising money or getting the fundraising strategy right, or how do you spend money that you've raised to get more customers, create more traction. We're always talking about business. So I'm excited to be back here to, well, pretty much talk about the same thing. But what you start to realize is that growing businesses that create a lot of results in your business has everything to do with personal growth. It's so interrelated, and it's so strange that sometimes people disconnect two things. They disconnect personal growth and they disconnect money as though they're two separate things. But what you start to see from what I'll share with you today is that both of them are extremely interrelated. Let me show you something. You guys, anyone know who this woman is? Yeah, Sarah Blakely. She's the Forbes Billionaires, the youngest self-made woman in Forbes Billionaire list. So her backstory, I mean, for a lot of you who know, she created this type of form wear. I think it's called shapewear, where it's underwear that accentuates your ass or your hips or any part of your body, makes it look really good. And as you can tell, I've been using their level 10 advanced product, and it works wonders, I tell you. I mean, this woman, her $1 billion idea literally came out of her ass. Think about that. Right, here's why I'm introducing you to her. In the Forbes Billionaires interview, she was asked, what is it like to become a billionaire in a very short amount of time? And she was asked, how did it change you? Now she said, I feel like money makes you more of who you already are. If you're an asshole, you become a bigger asshole. If you're nice, you become nicer. And I mean, I've worked with founders who literally became millionaires and sometimes multi-millionaires in the span of like under 2 years. And like I've met people from different ranges, and I can attest that this is actually very, very true. So what I'd like to talk about here today, it blends into personal growth, it blends into business, but it's a bit of an exercise. I'm going to share things with you that imagine if you're going to get flushed with cash over in the next 30 minutes. By the end of this talk, I'm going to see whether you guys are huge assholes or not. I see a big asshole walking around. You know what's going down. So for those of you who are here last year, I spoke about getting unstuck. And my fundamental insight with a lot of business creation and rapidly accelerating results is that a lot of the times you may work with someone who's coming from a point where they're eating sand every day, right? Like I met Martin. You hear Martin? I was talking to Martin last night, and he lives on 7 ringgit a day right now because he's like saving up all the money for his current startup. So sometimes you come from a point where like you don't have much and you're just fighting to grow. But for a lot of us, all of us have great results in our lives. Right now, you guys are here at Awesomeness Fest. You guys are smiling. The energy is great. Last night's dance party was through the roof. Like, you guys are happy. You guys are healthy. You guys are wealthy in so many ways. And that makes it even harder to get to the next level. Because you're so comfortable, you're seeing everything you want in your life, and you want you a little bit more. How do you break out from a comfort zone if it's the best damn comfort zone that you have that you spend years to build? Now, that's hard. So could you say that you're stuck? Maybe. Last year, I introduced 3 tools at 3 distinct phases of the creation process. The first phase is that when you're stuck with producing your idea. The next phase is when you're stuck with assembling a team, getting the right team on board. And the third tool was when you already have a company and you want it to run more autonomously without you. So those 3 tools is available on YouTube. You can also go to Khailee.com, like the link to the videos there. What I want to talk about today, about getting unstuck, is more like a prelude of sorts. I mean, I thought about it. Okay, great. You know you're stuck. You need these tools to get unstuck. But what if you don't know you're stuck? What if you spend 6 months or to a year thinking you're making progress, and then you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, I have made no progress in my life. I've been thinking about things, I've been trying things, I've been doing things, but you look back, your results are the same. You look at your bank account, it's the same balance you had 2 years ago. Did you think you were stuck? Maybe you didn't. Maybe nobody told you. Maybe you haven't told yourself. So I started to think a little bit about how do you know when you're stuck? Because if you can know you're stuck, you didn't have to wait 2 years to know you're stuck and do something about it, and somebody could have told you, or you could have told yourself maybe in 2 weeks, you would have saved an entire year and 50 more weeks, right? A year and 50 weeks, it's like 102 weeks. So you don't spend 102 weeks of your life, right? All because you knew a little bit earlier. So I'm going to talk about 3 tools to detect when you're stuck. And I'm going to do this by telling you 3 stories in my life. Now, the first one, so I'm going to share with you 3 signals. What signal would tell you that you might be stuck, and what can you do about it? I'm going to share 3 stories. Now, the first story. This first story is called "It's Not My Job." When I was 15 years old, a lot of my friends and I, we came from a government high school, SMK Damansara Jaya. I know some high school mates here. So a lot of my friends were talking about getting part-time jobs, because when you hit age 16 in Malaysia, it's legal for you to get a part-time job. So I was 15, friends were talking about it. We were saying, okay, what if you worked at Starbucks, man? It's kind of cool. You get 4 ringgits an hour, it's not bad. Oh, but you could fold clothes at this other shop and get 4 ringgit 50 cents an hour. Haha, 50 cents more an hour, that's great. And there's this other friend whose older brother built a flash intro. That kind of reveals my age, but yeah, so he built a flash intro and charged 60,000 Sing dollars, which is about 50,000 US dollars to build a flash intro. 2 weeks of work, 50,000 US dollars. And that kid was like 17 years old. So I'm like, why am I trying to get 4 ringgit an hour, which is about $1.50 US dollars an hour, when I could work 2 weeks and get 50,000 US dollars? I need to learn this shit. So me and my friends were like, okay, let's learn how to build websites, man. So we just spent nights, right, on the internet, instead of our alternative activities, we instead learned how to build websites. And over that course of time, it became part of my identity as someone who understood the web, someone who understood the internet. And I would spend 15 all the way till I was 21 years old building websites for people. And that's how I made a bit of my side income. So it became part of me that I was good at this. And I really prided myself in being a web designer, a web developer. Eventually, I picked up some front-end development, and I worked with a lot of other programmers to get things done. And I found that was such a good skill, because in a world where people don't understand much of technology, people want to get their ideas built, I felt very special. I felt like, wow, I had something to offer, and I was paid good money to do it. So it became part of my identity. When I joined Vision to work in Mind Valley, to refresh his memory, no, I'm kidding. I spent a lot of times also building out a lot of web projects. Like Vision and the rest of me have a lot of ideas, and translating those ideas into actual products people use, interfacing between designers and developers. I played a key role in a lot of those things. So when I left, naturally, I was looking for business partners who could do business operations, management, sales, stuff that required me to get off the computer. And I found a business partner, his name's Joel, and he's fantastic at it. And we started building businesses together. Now at this point, I was still with that mindset that I'm Khailee, like the technology guy. I'm Khailee, the web designer, the web developer. Like, that's who I am. And it came one day in the journey of building my first business where things were not going very well at all. But we had one shot at this deal that Joel had been putting together. It would be a very, very big deal with a huge organization. If we get this deal, it would mean we wouldn't have to raise outside funding, and we could fund ourselves for another 10 months, pay salaries, and keep growing for another 10 months. So naturally, this deal meant a lot to Joel. And of course, it meant a lot to me. We had spent 2 whole months preparing for this deal. And when push come to when the decision day came, there was this final presentation. Joel, who had been doing all the sales by the time, said, Khailee, they might be asking some tough questions, especially if it gets technical. I'm going to need you to come with me. So I'm like, yeah, but I'm the tech guy, man. I'm not going to go on a sales call. Sales is not my job. Like, you go and sell. That's why I work with you, man. So I can do the web stuff. You do the sales stuff, right? She's like, come on, dude. What if you ask me these kind of questions? I'm going to need your help. I'm like, okay, I'll just go at a few questions, all right? I'm going to bring my laptop with me. So I go in the meeting room, covering my face with my laptop, sitting down there, and then the meeting begins. Joel presents. He presents and he presents. At this point, I peered beyond my laptop, and I realized that this was no ordinary meeting. This was a meeting where you've got a boardroom, and the people around the board table, and then there are seats on the side of the boardroom. So I was kind of, wait a minute, there's like 30 people in this meeting. Like the boardroom table's not even big enough for all of them. Just sitting on the side. Sounds really important. So then, and Joel was presenting, okay, finished presenting, and then opened up the Q&A. They're asking him some questions, some of which were like Joel directed the questions to me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm the smart tech guy and I know all the answers, so I'm gonna answer everything like I'm so smart, right? I'm answering all these smart things. And so they asked me more and more questions. So being like a straightforward geek guy, I just gave really straightforward answers. Now at the end of the meeting, I walked out of the room feeling really smug. I was like, wow, that was a pretty good meeting. Joel said, hey, how do you think that meeting went? I said, that was a really good meeting. Did you see all the questions they were asking, and see how we answered all those questions? You saw I answered those questions. It was great. I think we got the deal. Joel said we lost it. What do you mean we lost it? I said the reason why they're asking those questions was because they're trying to suggest that they already have existing solutions, which is very similar to the solution we have. They're trying to show the board that they didn't need our solution. We lost it. Okay, so we walk out, go into the car, and then we drive back. And it's a long drive back, so it's a 45-minute drive back. We're driving, Joel's quiet. He may be pissed at me, I don't know. I'm sitting there, I'm like telling myself, fuck man, sales, I will never do sales again. I'm a geek, man. I'm a tech guy. What the hell am I doing in a sales meeting? Joel should just win on his own, man. Like, it's not my job, man. But at the same time, I felt so guilty. I really screwed this up. And I started thinking about what's going to happen in the next 10 months. What's going to be our next source of revenue? Like, are we going to be able to find funding? And how's Joel feel about all this, man? And I just broke down. I cried. It's like I really screwed months of work up, and I cried and I cried and I cried. So we're driving it back, and I'm crying, and Joel started like semi freaking out. It's like, dude, wait, bro, hey. Shit. And he turned up the music and just like, okay, it's not happening, man, not happening, man. It's cold for having a mental breakdown. Just don't talk to him. So I was done. I was probably dehydrated by the end of that process. Right? Why did I have some chicken rice, right? So we're eating the same 7 ringgit meal you were having, man. So eating some chicken rice, getting our shit chow, Chinese tea, and eating. And so Joel says, Joel breaks the silence and says, Khailee, if you don't want to do sales, I'll never make you go to a sales meeting again. Okay? We'll never have to put you through that again. And I kept quiet. I was like, I just didn't talk to him. I was just eating. I was thinking about it. And he said, but if you want to join me, go to sales call tomorrow, then we can learn how to do it better together. I was like, okay, all right. So I finished my chicken rice. I said, all right, let's do it. Let's go. Now that decision alone of a willingness to evolve beyond the identity of being a technology guy to starting to learn sales put me on a process which transformed my life forever. Being like fundamentally still a really geeky guy, the first thing I did that night was Google how to do sales, right? Googling that shit, right? And I was Googling, reading everything I can, and I found that a lot of the stuff at I don't know why I didn't sit well with a lot of the material I read, but I came across this one blog post about a programmer who's actually had to do a lot of, Google calls them sales engineers, right? They're salespeople, but they're fundamentally programmers. And he talked about how selling is essentially sharing what you believe in. I was like, hey, I can relate to that. I can share what I believe in. And from a lot of those things, I started doing more and more sales stuff. It came to a point where we invented another type of business, a different way of monetizing our news website, sales.com. It was like a very, very new way of monetizing it. Joel at the time was in charge of another business unit that we set up, so I had to do all the sales myself. So in 10 months, I went out and I closed 70 of Malaysia's largest advertisers, billing 350,000 US dollars worth of revenue in 10 months. Towards the last month, I got one extra salesperson to assist me. But when I look back on that first year versus the time I went for that sales meeting, I said, wow, like, am I a salesperson now? Like, did I just pick up this new skill? And with that story alone, I kind of felt that every time I approach a problem and I have something that I don't know how to do, I feel like I can learn it, I feel like I can do it. And even if I don't, I feel like I can find somebody to do it because I can relate, I can appreciate that. However, what it means to a lot of other entrepreneurs that I work with, they would say things like, oh, fundraising, I hate fundraising, man. It's such a pain, such a bitch to talk to investors. I should be building my business. Fundraising, that's not my job. oh, I got this CFO guy that I brought along, he can do that. Or some people, they'll be afraid of technology. They'll be like, I have all these ideas, but I just can't get technology, man. I'm not a programmer. Just look at me, man. Can I program? No, I hate technology. I need to find somebody else to do it for me, which is fair. We live in a world where people tell you to focus on your strengths, but that does not mean that you have to have an active aversion for key aspects of your business, which is so fundamental to help you realize your dreams. It doesn't mean you have to avoid it, and it doesn't mean that you got to keep repeating yourself, not my job, that's not my job, that's not my job, like I did. So story number 1, to detect you're stuck, if you have a language of repetitive avoidance, if you keep repeating to yourself to avoid something, not my job, I don't want to do this, somebody else should be doing it, I don't want to know about it, I don't want to hear about it, oh, finance, I don't hear about it, man, I'm not an accountant, I don't care. The language of repetitive avoidance. If you hear yourself speaking this language to other people, speaking it to yourself, you need to make a change. You don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to be an accountant yourself, but you gotta at least love this shit. You're like, wow, accounting's really important, man. Like no wonder all my money is missing, right? I need to get some accounting done. How am I gonna file my taxes? Right? Like this stuff's important, man. In fact, like a lot of some other, like what you may or may not know is that there's a lot of very powerful entrepreneurs. Their background's in accounting. Like you think it's marketing or business? Tony Fernandez was an accountant. Patrick Grove was an accountant. All these guys, they built billion-dollar enterprises out of Malaysia. They're all accountants. So that's kind of like the first detection, when you avoid something and you say it's not my job. And what you need to do is you need to grow an active affinity for it, so you can attract the best talent and the best people to do it. And they feel very appreciated working with you because you understand, you feel, and you appreciate what they do, and you feel how it's very important. So next story. Oh, wait a minute, there's an exercise. Woohoo! So you guys probably guessed it. You probably already know this, you don't have to write it down. But if there's one role, a job, or a skill that you've been avoiding or loathing, it may be the one that's keeping you stuck. So you write it down, you embrace it. Learn to love it. Learn to appreciate it so you can get the best people in the world to do it. Who knows, you may do it yourself and you may discover that you're really good at it. Story number 2. Now I'm going to share with you story number 2 to reveal the second signal, the second tool to detect whether or not you're stuck. So this story is called Can You Help Me? So midway through my journey, we had to hire, not midway, this is kind of like the earlier part of the journey where we had to build a more sophisticated web product. So this is not just building a website, we had to build like a web application. So I'm not an application developer, but I loved application development enough to understand that Ruby on Rails is a great language to get this done. At the time, it was still kind of earlier in its adoption as a programming language, so only the kind of cool kids for geeks, I guess, liked Ruby on Rails. I guess most kids didn't think Ruby on Rails was any cool at all. But if you're a geek, Ruby on Rails is basically a cool thing. So I was like, all right, we're gonna find a Ruby on Rails developer. I went to events in Malaysia to find these programmers. And for those of you in business, you guys know how hard it is to get programmers in general, not even Ruby on Rails. So I go to a lot of these events and try to find developers. I couldn't hire any of them. They're all busy with projects or whatnot. So I organized events to lure more programmers to me so I could make offers and try to hire more of them. What I started to realize was people did a lot of PHP, but nobody did Ruby on Rails till I met Kamal. Now, Kamal, you're a bona fide Ruby on Rails developer. He's like, yes, I've been building on Ruby on Rails for the past 3 years, back before it was cool. I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. So I got this project, right? So I tried to hire him. But Kamal, he's in great demand. He's the only Ruby on Rails developer in Malaysia at the time. Of course, he's in great freaking demand. So he didn't want to do stuff for me. I had to pay top dollar just for him to work 2 weeks with me to build the first version of the product. He built it. It was great. We launched it with a couple of thousand users. It was a great product. And then I went back to Kamal, I need to change this feature. I think we kind of need the sign-up process to be more like that. He's like, sorry, busy. You're on your own now. I was like, what? You just can't leave me with this Ruby on Rails application and not help me? Come on, dude. So I went back to my events. I went back talking to people. I went back trying to hire people. But everybody did PHP. I'm standing there for 3 months with a product that can't evolve. And I was on the edge of learning Ruby on Rails myself. But that was when I kind of decided that maybe I need to switch the conversation up a little bit. Let me talk to Kamal and see what else is going on. I said, Kamal, you said there are no other Ruby on Rails developers in Malaysia. He said, that's right. I'm like, so why not you tell me if anyone is learning Ruby on Rails right now, actively learning it. So Kamal said, there's this one guy. His name's Aizat. Go talk to Aizat. I hunt Aizat down. I'm like, Aizat, I heard you're learning Ruby on Rails. I know you were probably half-baked, probably half-assed, but I will pay you to build my app. He's like, yeah, but I'm kind of busy. I have all these jobs, these projects. You know what I mean? You don't even offering me that much money. I don't think I want to do it. And I was courting Aizat. I kind of became his friend, invited him to parties. You know, I did everything, man. I just never looked at a developer. Give it to me. Months, okay? Months of pain just to get a developer. In the end, Aizat just flat out rejected me. He said, Khailee, I just can't build it for you yet. I'm still learning Ruby on Rails, and I want to do my thing. I was like, okay. I'm going to pay you to learn Ruby on Rails. I'm going to pay you to just sit down and learn it on your own. And here's a PHP developer I met whose name is Arzumi. He wants to learn Ruby on Rails. I'm going to pay you to learn with him. You're going to learn together in this little classroom, and you just don't build anything for me. I'm going to pay you just learning it. Just have what you want. Go and learn it. And while you learn it, I also have this app which you can learn on. And fast forward a couple of years later, Kamal became the head of engineering at a company called Viki. Viki is a company that 500 startups we invested in 2 years ago. Viki is one of Southeast Asia's success stories as far as startup exit is concerned. They built a Korean entertainment translation kind of platform, kind of like a Hulu, but with a lot of K-pop stuff, translated into 80 languages. They were sold to Rakuten a couple of months ago for $200 million US. Right? So Kamal became the lead engineer. Aizat, he went on to build a lot of interesting things. Most notably is an app you guys might know. It's called Facebook. So he was in the growth and engagement team, building a lot of the friend requests and friend finders, just a very senior engineer in Facebook. Arzumi went on to become the CTO for most of my companies, helping me build GroupSmart, Sales.com, and a lot of other apps. Arzumi trained an intern called Edmund. Edmund became the CTO of another company called iMoney, which I invested in, which is one of the top performing companies in my portfolio. And the trickle-down effect from just the one decision to invest in a few people's learning created a generation of technologists that laid the foundation for Malaysia's success. So what just happened there? If you find yourself doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result, there's like a cliche quote, they call it insanity, but you don't have to dramatize it that much. It just means you're kind of stuck. It's like you're playing Street Fighter and all the keys are broken, there's only light punch. It's just, you're trying to, like the big boss is like kicking your ass. You're like, come on, don't kill me, please, right? You gotta try different moves, man. You gotta try some new moves. So if you're getting the same old results in your life, and you're sitting there just with you got a one-hand light punch, like what have you been doing to produce those results? Write that down. You may be repeating this for weeks, maybe years, and you're thinking that that's gonna give you new results. Well, guess what? It's not. It's kind of expired itself. If I went around trying to hire programmers, hire, give me what I want, I could be still stuck there at events talking to you guys. Are you a programmer? Right? So trying to like program you guys. I have to hire you guys, right? So instead, like I switched it up. I want to try something crazy. I'm just gonna pay them to learn. So think about it. What are you doing now that you repeatedly do over and over again, and you're hoping it's going to give you a different result, but it's not? Write that down, and you think of one crazy experiment to try. You might just crash and burn and fail, and that's probably going to be humorous to some degree, but it could also be very successful for you. So that's the second thing. It's in your actions. You keep doing the same things, and you're getting similar results, so you need to try something else. So I've covered 2 ways to detect that you're stuck. One's in your language, and one's in your actions. I will share with you a third story, share with you a third tool, a third signal. This story is called Our Vision Is. So, in the earlier part of my business, I found that the vision for my company kept changing every 2 weeks. Part and parcel is because it's a function of me not knowing what the hell I was doing. But on the other hand, it's like there's always new things to build, there's new ways ideas can develop. The more I launch it out there and talk to customers, talk to other entrepreneurs, is that there are always new ideas, new directions to bring the business to. And I would always be like, oh yeah, so one moment I'm like this community company, next moment I'm like this research company, next moment, so my vision kept evolving. So when it got to a point where our social news product was really mature, I was like, finally, we stuck to the same vision for my company for like a few months. And I felt so comfortable about it. I'm like, we're a social news network. We help the biggest stories travel through social media. We have a community of 500,000 social media users who help not just like public stories, but advertiser stories travel as well. So we're a social news network. I was so happy. I felt that I did service to my employees because they wouldn't feel so lost. Like I felt like I could tell them something with certainty, and that felt really good. I felt like I got to a point where this vision is finally getting real. I didn't have to change it around so much. And so I stuck to it. I stuck to my goals. I stuck to my vision. There's this thing in my mind of what my company is. I stuck to it. The first year, from 300,000 US dollars in revenue, we ramped that stuff up to 1.2 million US dollars, and we just kept growing. Second year, third year, we kept growing. Then the growth started to slow. And we were working harder than we've ever worked. We were trying more things than we've ever tried, but growth started to slow. And at this point, I'm not going to wait till we started to lose money before I started to turn things around. I started to sit down, literally sit down. I'm going to sit down, right? I literally sat down and said, what's going on? I have stuck to my vision for the past 2 years, and I've grown it to this point, and growth is starting to slow. What is wrong? I took a step back, and I said, fine. Screw my vision, man. What's the bigger picture of what I'm doing? So I'm a social news network, so what? What's going on in this world right now? Okay, media. We're getting advertiser dollars. So we're essentially kind of like a media company. And to be a big media-related company, because social media is just media. So how do you become a big media company? How are the biggest media companies built? So I started Googling again. I discovered that there was, every 10 years, the media industry goes through a period of consolidation. So it started in the US in the 60s, where Time Warner started grouping up a lot of media companies into a larger group. News Corp did the same, Viacom. Closer to home in Asia, the Star Group started doing it. In Singapore, SPH was doing it. Every 10 years, you just group the media companies together to become larger. And I thought, oh, so the way to become a huge media conglomerate is by grouping a lot of smaller guys together. I didn't think about that. But I'm a social news network. What have I got to do with grouping companies together? Unless I'm not a social news network, unless I'm a media giant, unless I'm a new media giant, unless I'm a revolutionary media company. Okay, that's an idea. Wow, I've got to change my vision again. Okay, for once I have a vision, and now I've got to change it again. Okay, great. So if I were to pursue this new vision of being the largest consolidated digital media company in all of Southeast Asia, how am I going to do that? So that idea set me on a path. I talked to Patrick Grove, one of the, Vishen and I, one of our close friends as well. He's built a portfolio of $1.5 billion US dollars worth of 3 companies in 6 years. And he does it because he's an accountant, but he's also good at, he is an accountant actually, but he's really good at consolidating businesses together. He's really good at grouping businesses together. So I went to Patrick and said, hey Patrick, let's do this. A year later, we've grouped together a lot of smaller media companies. And I'm proud to say in Malaysia, in our country, we're in the top 5 largest websites with the largest reach, according to ComScore. The only 3 sites that's larger than our group is Google, Facebook, and Yahoo. And Yahoo, I would say not for long. This company, we're going to take it public, so the wheels are in motion. Probably our laws against me soliciting and hyping up the stock just with him, so I'm just going to stop right there. But so that, and that was so what just happened? What just happened there? What just happened was, a lot of times when we're so fixated on our vision of our company, that same fixation on the vision can also be what's getting us stuck. Visions, just like humans, just like life, they're evolving things. They evolve. And to put any hindrance, to stop and block its evolution is a terrible idea. Sometimes you just gotta allow things to flow. Sometimes you gotta hold it tight, you gotta hold it strong, you gotta hold it firm, keep it clear. But sometimes things evolve as well. And kind of knowing when your vision is kind of at a certain level, when it needs to evolve, entertain the idea just for 5 minutes. You'll never know what kind of options get created. So last year, if some of you were here it was A-Fest, last year's A-Fest, I told you a story about an app. So my girlfriend Cinch over there, she's got this app called Watch Over Me. So it's a personal safety app which if you can turn it on, and if you're in danger and you can't reach your phone, it will send an emergency alert to your loved ones. Well, that vision evolved. It started off from a personal safety app, but when she sat down and she thought about, what if you don't know you need to turn the app on? What if you're here in Phuket and you rented a motorcycle and you're just driving around the streets? Or you're just walking around a market. How would you know that street had 3 robberies in the past week? Like, you wouldn't know. Well, how would you know if you're traveling in Barcelona and this is a main street, but the side street that you're taking a shortcut to is a very dangerous street? You might not know. So her company's mission has evolved to say, okay, we're not just gonna alert loved ones when you're in trouble, we're gonna be preemptive to prevent you from going into a troublesome area. So her vision is put a safety rating on every street in the world. The evolution from a safety app to something which gives you a safety rating at every street, one day we'll be able to walk the world where we get alerted if it's a dangerous street and we can turn on, watch over me and say, okay, protect me for 10 minutes. And if anything happens, then the phone's gonna automatically send an alert out so people come and get you. So that's an example, again, of a vision evolving. And you can see a lot of ways companies evolve beyond their mission. Look at Google, what was the search engine? Look at it now, they're like self-driving cars and all that stuff. You look at I know maybe Coca-Cola is not a popular example, but it's like it was a drink, right? But now they're like a beverage company. They've got mineral water, they've got other kind of alternative non-sugary drinks as well. Like a lot of companies, it's just in the nature of visions to evolve. So if you are sitting there right now and you have a vision in your mind, now imagine if it's fully fulfilled. When that vision is fully fulfilled, what if it was a small piece of a bigger picture? So how can you be part of that bigger picture? If you can write that down and just give it 5 minutes to think about it. My argument is that you're going to have this influx of ideas, of ways that your vision can grow. Especially if you've stuck with a certain vision for a couple of years, you might want to do this exercise once a year maybe, just to see how big that goes. So, I've covered 3 stories. I've covered 3 signals to detect that you're stuck. The first one was language. When you keep repeating the language of avoidance, it's not my job, oh, I hate that, oh, I don't want that. Language. The second one is your actions, where you repeatedly do a lot of the same things all the time. It just becomes habit. You don't even notice it, but you're getting the similar results from it. The third one is that it's in your ambition. You fixate so much on your dream that that dream holds you back, and it stops growing. When you look at these 3 things, they're not overly complex ideas. These are just dimensions of reality. We're looking at your thoughts, your words, and your actions. 3 simple ways that you can detect whether or not you're stuck. And with this, I'd like to say that if in this room, hundreds of people in this room, if you guys just unstuck yourself 50% faster than you otherwise would, multiply that by the hundreds of you in this crowd and the missions you're on, what we do today to unstuck ourselves is going to change this world forever, and that's not an understatement. Now over to you, your move. Thank you very much.